Welcome to the Humanities Team podcast with me, Steve Farrell. Humanities Team is an international spiritual movement whose purpose is to communicate and demonstrate the timeless truth that we are all one, with the divine and all life, caring for each other and the world we share, so that people's actions reflect this profound understanding within our generation. We believe that living this truth is essential to resolving the most chronic and acute world challenges and vital to creating a flourishing world of peace, harmony, and happiness. We offer transformative education programs in personal and spiritual development, and we host an annual event called Global Oneness Day. Similar to Earth Day, which galvanized the global environmental movement, Global Oneness Day has become a catalyst for spiritual activism and an integral part of the present-day global oneness movement, which represents a profound new paradigm in human culture. Humanities Team is the only global nonprofit organization working in transformational education. Since we are a nonprofit, there is no focus on growing profits or satisfying shareholders, and 100% of all revenue goes toward our work supporting conscious evolution, planetary awakening, and flourishing at every level of life. If you'd like to learn more about us or want to support our mission directly through donation or volunteering some of your time, please visit us online at humanitiesteam.org. And lastly, if you enjoyed this podcast, we'd be grateful if you'd leave us a review.
Welcome, everybody. Here we are in a celebration. I'm your host, Tim Noah. You can call me Noah, and I'm here with Nathan Crane. Welcome, Nathan.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Super happy to be here.
Great to have you back. For those of us who are used to celebration, Nathan has already been on here, and just apologies in advance. This is my cat Peanuts that's rubbing on the screen now. So sorry. But let me just read for those of us that are just joining now a little bit about Nathan, just to set the table for our conversation. So Nathan Crane is an award-winning author, inspirational speaker, plant-based athlete, Amazon #1 bestseller, and 20-time award-winning documentary filmmaker. Nathan is the director of the Health and Healing Club, host of the Conquering Cancer Summit, and director and producer of the documentary film, the new documentary film, Cancer, the Integrative Perspective. In 2005, at only 18 years old, Nathan began his health, healing, and spiritual journey, eventually overcoming a decade of brutal teenage addiction, house arrest, jail, and challenging times of homelessness, to become an international author, filmmaker, and speaker dedicated to health, healing, and conscious awakening. Nathan has received numerous awards for his contribution to health, healing, and personal development, including the Accolade Film Competition 2020 Outstanding Achievement Humanitarian Award, and the Outstanding Community Service Award from the California Senate for his work in education and empowerment with natural and integrative methods for healing cancer. With more than 15 years in health and wellness, 15 years in the health and wellness field, Nathan has reached millions of people around the world with his healing and inspiring message of hope and transformation. So, wow, Nathan, thank you for joining us, and just what an honor it is to share this time with you, and for you to share some of this wisdom with us.
You know, it's an honor to be here, Noah. I love the work that you guys do, and I am deeply grateful to be alive during this time, this crazy, challenging world that we're in right now. I mean, we're experiencing unprecedented levels of fear and anxiety, I think, than ever before. Unprecedented levels of isolation and depression, and even suicide. You know, we've seen a record number of young people taking their lives during this time, and it's very sad. You know, it's very disheartening to see so many people are so lost and isolated and afraid, so toxic and unhealthy, you know, dying from so many diseases. I mean, you mentioned my documentary about cancer. You know, 10 million people die every single year from cancer and its treatments. And cancer is a primarily preventable disease. You know, so it's a very challenging time we're living in. It's a very sad time we're living in, and yet at the same time, it's a very hopeful time, because we are having breakthroughs in information and education, I think, faster than ever before because of programs like this, because of the ability to make documentaries like the ones I've done, and to produce summits and to reach millions of people all over the world, because of the ability for people to come online and to connect with people from, hundreds of countries in every corner of the earth. And so, there's a lot of hope as people start to tune into more of these kinds of programs and start to tune into more of what their heart is telling them. You mentioned a little bit about my background. I was lost as a teenager. I mean, I grew up in a small town in Montana, Belgrade, Montana, and Bozeman, Montana. And there it was, you had a church and a bar on just about every corner. And in my teenage years, meth started running rampant. People were making this stuff in their basements, and houses were blowing up because there wasn't much to do for young people. And they, went down this path, and I got, sucked into that path as well. And it was a very challenging time, and I barely made it to 18 years old. And there's so many people today, whether they're teenagers or in their 20s or in their 50s or 70s, that are experiencing very poor quality of health. Chronic disease has just run rampant because of our lifestyles, because of our technocratic approach to how we live in the world, because of our disconnection from nature. If you look at the Oxford Dictionary of Nature, what does nature actually mean? How we have written it today, we have written ourselves as human beings out of nature. The dictionary actually says anything like animals, plants, trees, as opposed to humans or created by humans. We have literally written ourselves out of the dictionary of nature. And so this disconnection, Zach Bush, Dr. Zach Bush, somebody who I follow and I really honor so much, he talks about this in depth, that, because we've lost this connection to nature, we are seeing so many of these proliferation of diseases and challenges today, misinformation about viruses and the virome and bacterial infections, misinformation about how to actually take care of your health and prevent disease. And so, what I've come to be very dedicated to and passionate about the last 15 years is learning everything I can to take control of my health and my family's health, to live with vitality and energy and live a long, healthy, high quality level of an existence on this planet. Because I think not everyone wants to live to be 100 years old, but everybody wants to live pain-free. Everybody wants to live with energy and wants to feel good. Everyone wants to nobody wants to wake up sick and with stomach pains and chronic back pain and colon cancer and diabetes. Nobody's asking for these things, but the reality is the only reason we're experiencing these things today is because we don't know as a society what we can do about it. And so what I've dedicated the last 15 years of my life to is learning what can we do about it? What can we do to prevent these things? What can we do to heal ourselves naturally? What can we do to reclaim our health and live with energy and wholesomeness and vitality? Because it's totally possible. Every one of us, I have met so many incredible people who were told by their conventional oncologists, go home and die. You have 4 weeks left to live. And Bernie Siegel, asked his patients 10 years later, why didn't you die? How are you still alive? Why are you still here? And they said, I went home and I decided I wasn't ready to die. And so they took, they said, no, I'm not accepting that fake prognosis, that fake expiration date. And I'm going to reclaim my life. I'm going to live. I wasn't done living yet. And so when we, embrace that and realize, I'm not done living yet. I have more to give. I have more to do. Then we can start taking the steps towards reclaiming our health and to living longer, healthier, more vibrant lives. And I think that's what this whole kind of pandemic situation is allowing us to do, is to revisit what it is that we really want to do as human beings on this planet, what it is that we're meant to do, and what it is that we can do, right? What kind of life can we live if we are more in tune with nature, if we are more in tune with our higher selves, if you will, if we're more in tune with our heart and with our spirit, and if we come together and work together and get ourselves out of this fear, get ourselves out of this depression, get ourselves out of these negative emotional experiences and start dreaming and visioning and living a life that is, outside of this mainstream narrative, creating this new life, this new society, this new world that we want. And we can do it. That's the exciting thing, is we can do it. I've done it in my own life, and I've met so many others that have done it as well. So it is totally possible. And I think now is absolutely the time.
So Nathan, I know this whole documentary that you've just released a few months ago, Cancer, the Integrative Perspective, that people are raving about this. There's 20 awards that it's won, and it may sometime be in humanity's dream. But can you tell us a bit about this and your experience that led you into making this film and the process and how it has touched people's lives?
Yeah, thank you for that. I was about 7 years into my own kind of health and healing and spiritual awakening journey, if you will, and very, very much immersed in meditating hours and hours a day and experimenting with all kinds of cleansing and fasting and, chanting with Hare Krishnas and studying with Buddhist monks, and really deeply immersed in personal development and overcoming addiction and healing emotional trauma and, reclaiming my health, exercising, all these kinds of things. So about 7 years into it, I was writing a couple of books and teaching at some conferences and really feeling like I had a grasp on things. And then I got the call that my grandpa was diagnosed with cancer, and that and maybe he wasn't going to live much longer. And we went to go visit him in Arizona, and I saw how much he was suffering from the chemotherapy and radiation that the oncologist had prescribed for him. And up to that moment in my life, really the only other experience I had with cancer was as a child, my best friend's aunt growing up. And what I remember of her was, I was probably 8 or 9 or 10 years old. And what I remember of her was we knew she had cancer. And then by the time we saw her, she was bald, her hair had fallen out, had shaved her head. She was sick, weak, in a lot of pain. And then shortly after that, she passed away. So that's what I knew of cancer. And that's what I found out most people know of cancer today. And that's exactly what I saw of my grandfather. Bald, hair falling out, sick, so much pain and suffering. And that kind of flashed back in my mind. And I, having experience now with natural health, I knew there had to be like other things he could be doing to help himself other than chemotherapy and radiation, which was clearly killing him. So many people actually die from the treatments today, or infections after a weakened immune system from the treatments, rather than the cancer. Very few people actually ever die from cancer. It's a very small number. Today, actually, more people are dying from infections and heart problems and renal failure and other issues other than the cancer itself. And so I knew there had to be solutions, but I didn't know anything about cancer. So I couldn't really say much. We talked a little bit about maybe, he told me maybe he thought maybe the cure for cancer they were going to find in some rare berry in the Amazon rainforest one day, which to some degree is quite true. But at the time I was hopeless. I was helpless. I felt like I should know more about this by now. I should be able to help him, but I didn't. That was the truth. And then shortly after, he passed away in 2013. And I just got very committed to learning about cancer. And so I produced one of the first online summits about cancer. We interviewed dozens of naturopaths and integrative oncologists and natural doctors and people who reverse cancer using natural and holistic methods. That led to an annual summit. It led to an annual conference. It led to a magazine that I published. And then eventually it led to this documentary. And so I started the documentary because I wanted to help, as I learned more and more and more, what causes cancer, why we get cancer, what cancer actually is, and what we can do about it. That fear went away. It's like, oh, yeah, I don't have to be afraid of cancer anymore. It's like, I know what to do. I know what to do for my family. I know what to do to help others. Okay, it's just that we don't understand it as a society. And because we don't understand it, what we don't understand, we often fear. And especially when we see people suffering and, losing their hair and these sorts of things, that's very scary as well. And then we see loved ones die, and that's very scary as well. So you just compound fear on top of fear on top of fear. And so once I realized, wow, this information needs to get out to millions of people. So I started the documentary. And part of the documentary is to help bridge the gap between natural medicine and conventional medicine, because there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of medical doctors that don't know anything about natural medicine. They've never learned about diet and nutrition in school, in med school. They don't even know that there's 80,000 abstracts in peer-reviewed journals supporting the efficacy and safety of natural medicine for just about every chronic disease on the planet. Most medical doctors don't know this body of knowledge exists because they've never learned it. And so when you're just going to a conventional oncologist or just a conventional medical doctor, you're getting one small piece of the story. You're not getting true informed consent because they don't know what they don't know. It's not their fault. They just don't know it. And then so I wanted to learn from both sides. What's working in conventional medicine? What's working in natural medicine, ancient medicine, Eastern medicine, indigenous medicine? Like, there's amazing things that work. There are berries and fruits and herbs and things from the Amazon rainforest actually in our backyards that have anti-cancer properties. There was a massive study that just came out the other day, or recently, actually, I should say, a couple of months ago. Massive meta-analysis on tens of thousands of people. They looked at people who ate a couple of small mushrooms per day versus people who ate no mushrooms. And what they found out was that people who ate 2 small mushrooms per day has a 45% decreased risk of cancer than people who ate no mushrooms. These are little mushrooms, little fungus that grow all over the place, and many different kinds of mushrooms. It wasn't just one specific kind. There are many different kinds of mushrooms that have anti-inflammatory properties, anti-cancer properties, all kinds of properties that help the body heal. And it's not just mushrooms. It's also berries and herbs and fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and legumes and all kinds of amazing things that this earth has to help our body stay balanced, to stay healthy, to stay whole, and to stay cancer-free, right? So I created a documentary exploring the best of all worlds. Look, if something's working, I don't care where it comes from, let's use it. If something's not working, let's stop using it. Chemotherapy, for example, one of the most prescribed treatments today for cancer, has a 2.5%, actually it's 2.3% and 2.1% success rate. Chemotherapy. I mean, who knew that, right? I didn't know that until I started diving into this research and this information. I didn't know that, you don't see much benefit from chemotherapy for most cancers. Some cancers have a 50% success rate with chemotherapy, like testicular cancers, and others have a 0% success rate, and doctors are still prescribing it, right? And so, the more you know, the more you can do about it, right? And that's the key here, is educating yourself and educating others. Now, even if you don't have cancer, 1 out of 2 people right now are nearly diagnosed with cancer. We're almost up to 50% of people. So it's something that is touching, if you put 100 people in a room, half that room is almost likely to have cancer. So we have to learn what we can do to prevent cancer. The things we learn that can help reverse cancer, and I've met many people who've reversed stage 4 cancers using natural holistic approaches, are very similar to things we do to prevent cancer. So prevention is the best medicine, right? You don't want to wait till you're sick to do something about it. Let's prevent it in the first place. So chemotherapy with so they did they looked at 160,000 people in the U.S. and Australia, and they came back with when they grouped 22 adult malignancies together, they found that I believe it was the USA that had a 2.3% success rate, and Australia had a 2.1% success rate. Okay, so maybe chemotherapy works for some, but for many, it's not going to be very effective, right? Similar findings they found with radiation. Surgery also has its own problems. So sometimes those things might be necessary, but if you're not addressing the underlying cause and condition that led to the cancer, your diet and lifestyle and environment, your toxic burden, your emotional state, we know that stress, anxiety, fear, isolation, these things inhibit the immune system, and they can lead to cancer forming in the body. How? Because our immune system is designed to target, to identify, target, find, seek, and destroy cancer cells in the body. That's what our immune system does. Right? Cancer is not an invading enemy. It's a product. It's a result of a lifestyle. And yes, genes have a small role to play, but most cancer is not genetics. Even cancer.gov says only 5% of cancer is even hereditary, meaning 95% of people who have cancer today, which is most people, it's not hereditary. It's diet, lifestyle, and environment, thinking. And through epigenetics, we know that we can turn on and off these gene expressions. So even if it is 5% hereditary, we know now through the science of epigenetics, we can actually, through diet, environment, lifestyle, thinking, behavior, and emotions, we can actually turn off cancer-expressing genes, and we can turn on longevity genes, anti-aging genes, and healing genes, and anti-cancer genes through doing the practice I just shared with you, getting your body into a parasympathetic state, getting yourself into a state of calmness, to relaxation, where your parasympathetic nervous system is activated, which means your immune system is upregulated, which means your body is helping to remove cancer from it. We all have cancer cells. You have them, I have them. We all have cancer cells in our body right now. The only thing that leads to a cancer diagnosis is when the cells have proliferated to an astronomical rate. I mean, we're talking billions and trillions of cells, right? And then it may turn into a tumor. It may be a blood cancer. It might be in the lymph nodes. It may be in the brain. But as Dr. Thomas Lodi says in my documentary, cancer is cancer is cancer. It doesn't matter. He treats it all the same. It's just the only difference is the word before cancer. Brain cancer, breast cancer, kidney cancer, blood cancer. It doesn't matter. It's all the same process. It's a chronically fermentative process that happens through DNA damage, lack of nutrients in the body. So two things can really lead to cancer: nutrient deficiencies and excessive toxic burden. And excessive toxic burden is also included in there is stress and anxiety and fear, but also toxins and fake foods coming into the body, toxins in the air, water, and soil, and then nutrient deficiencies because of the fake foods, because people are not eating the way that we're designed to eat in harmony with nature. And so these two things can absolutely lead to cancer, which the beautiful side of that we cover in depth in the film. You know, I've interviewed almost 50 world-leading experts and people who've reversed cancer in the documentary. So you get to go into detail into each of these topics, but we look at it from it's what's called the integrative perspective, because it's about integrating the best of everything that works and getting rid of everything that doesn't work, right? So we're exploring that. What works for the mind and emotions? What works for your spiritual side? What works for diet and nutrition? What works for water and clean air? What are the plastics doing? So we look at it from a very holistic and a very integrative perspective. And at the end of the film, you're very uplifted. You're very hopeful. You know so much more about cancer than you ever did before, and you have real solutions that you can start exploring. Which is the point of it, is to get us thinking differently, right? The whole film is to get us thinking differently about cancer, so we're not so afraid of it anymore. We don't have to be afraid of it when we understand it. We understand what causes it, what we can do about it. And so that's really what it's about: education, empowerment, and then making better decisions for our health.
Well, wonderful, Nathan. I hope, and again, I do hope that we can get this documentary on Humanity Stream, and we'll have to come back and just focus on this particular case, because wow, so many people are interested in this, and how many people this could help. And I'm pretty sure you mentioned that in order to heal, we need to, think differently about our diet, lifestyle, and mindset. And there are questions about each of these from our audience, Nathan. So I'm going to bring in a question from Susan, who's joining the stream. So thank you, Susan, for the question. Susan says, I know people who seem to thrive on having enemies, whether the enemies are people or situations to push against. Besides modeling more positive behavior, what can I do to help them shift so that they have less stress?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a tough one. It depends on who you're trying to help. If you don't mind putting in the chat who it is you're trying to help. Is this a loved one? Is this a spouse? Is this a child? Or is this just somebody you meet in the store, right? Because each of those situations and circumstances can definitely garner a different response, and somebody you don't know is likely to be less responsive and more reactive, depending on how you approach them, versus somebody you know very well, right? Like a spouse, and they may even be very reactive depending on your approach. So I want to go back to what you just said. I think you're brilliant, and you have a lot of wisdom, clearly, because you're saying that you are modeling that which you want. And that's number one, right? We have to live in the way that we want to see people treat each other in the world. And even if they treat us like shit, excuse my language, but I get hate emails from people every day. I mean, people hate me, but not as many as people that send me messages that they just say, I totally changed their life and they love it and they are so appreciative, right? It's 90-10 or 95% love, 5% hate, but there's always going to be people. It doesn't matter what good you're doing in the world. For whatever reason, they're going to hate you, and they're not going to like you, and they're not going to, do what, follow anything you say. And that's part of our life, is to accept them as they are, right? Stop taking those things personal and accept people as they are, where they're at. That's gotten really easy for me, especially with people I don't know, people that I meet, people online, because people online will do and say things that they would never say to you in front of your face. Because they don't have that immediate interaction in person. So they'll bite their tongue, or they'll hold it, or maybe they'll think a little deeper and go, maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe that's not the best thing to say. Online, people just go boom and type whatever they want, and without thinking it through, and hit send because they're angry or whatever. And so, that's a whole different story. But the key is we have to live, and I'm not perfect at this by any means. I certainly have my times and my moments and my challenges, but I'm getting better and better all the time. I'm getting better and better through being a father, through being a husband, through being, somebody that people look up to, like really trying to live in that integrity in myself. And I have my moments, my issues that come up, my reactions, and it happens, but I have tools now. And the tools are, if I react to something, I can step back, take a big deep breath, relax my nervous system. The key here is you get into a sympathetic nervous system response, and then boom, we are just reactive, which doesn't help anything or anybody, right? We get into a verbal argument, or we get into a fight or whatever. So we step back, take a few big deep breaths, and then ask, I ask myself, what is my approach right now for the highest good of all? What's the best approach for me right now to create the highest good for all, for the person I'm interacting with, for myself, for my family, for the world? And just calming the nervous system down, asking a question like that, sometimes it's just walk away. It's just literally like, okay, nothing, just walk away, let it go. And then we'll, revisit it later when we've had some time to think it through. That works really well, especially in really close relationship situations. In other situations where it's somebody you don't know, the best thing you can do is just model, right? Is bring your happy self, your loving self, your compassionate self. They may, you may brighten up their day. You may cheer them up. You may bring them some happiness in their life, or they may, not be interested in sharing in your happiness at all. And that's okay. We have to learn to detach from that. That's the Buddhist teaching, right? Is detachment, is compassion and detachment. And detachment is actually pure love, right? Detachment is not apathy. Detachment is the purest form of love, because we give love, we give compassion, we give kindness, and we don't expect anything in return. We receive things in return openly, but we don't expect it. And that's the true meaning of detachment, right? If we're attached to something, then we're giving, we're sharing, we're kind. And if somebody's not giving that back to us, it upsets us, then we are attached to that outcome. So I call it expectations without attachment. We can expect the worst. We can expect the best. We can expect, people are going to be kind and loving. We can expect good things to happen, but we don't attach to the outcome. And it's easy to say. I've been working on it for 15 years. So it's another thing that we just have to practice.
Well, wonderful, Nathan. And thank you. And Susan shares it's a sibling. So your response was spot on. And she thanks you for the helpful process here. And this actually takes us wonderful.
With siblings really quick, sometimes so that's a different relationship. Depends on your relationship with them. With some of my siblings, sometimes I can just hit them hard with a hard piece of truth, right? Like, why would you ever do that stupid thing? What are you thinking about? Almost like intense with almost some joke behind it, and then change the energy to, here's what I really mean. Check this out, right? And then bring in the love and kindness. Sometimes those shocking little moments, right? This is a common thing a lot of Buddhist teachers and Hindu teachers actually did with their disciples for thousands of years to break the mental pattern. Sometimes that's what's needed, and with a sibling, if you have a close relationship, you can play around with that more without worrying about ruining a relationship. But then you bring in the love and the kindness and the compassion, all of that. Sometimes, that's an approach that's needed, but you have to just kind of tune into yourself and find out what works for you.
Thank you, Nathan. And this takes us wonderfully into a segment from your Wholesome Living course, which is on Humanities Stream, that Jim can play for us now. This is a few-minute clip.
The first thing we want to do is every single day we want to be really mindful about the words we're telling ourselves, about the thoughts we're thinking, as well as the words we're saying to other people. We want to think of our language, of our thoughts and of our speech as instant manifestations. And what I mean by that is, what if every single thought you had, every single word you spoke, instantly manifested in front of you right then and there? If that were the case, you would be really mindful, really careful about what thoughts you were thinking, about what words you were saying, right? Well, the reality is what you think and say don't necessarily always manifest right in front of you right now. But over time, those things will continue to show up in your life, because that's how energy works. Like energy attracts like energy. So we really want to be mindful of what we're thinking and what we're saying. Now, here's a few examples to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Oftentimes in conversations, I might hear someone say something like, yeah, you always leave the dirty dishes out, or you never close the bedroom door, or you always forget to lock the garage, or something like that, right? Words like always, never, those types of things, especially when associated with talking about a specific type of task or action or undone action, are very unproductive things to say, right? Because you say, you never do this, right? You never close the door. You never pick up after yourself. You never save enough money every month. You always say this negative thing to your child, right? If you look at the truth of that, I guarantee you, 99.9% of the time, those words are not true. And what I mean by that is, if you say something like, you never save enough money, I guarantee you 99% of the time in most people's lives, there were some times in that person's life where they saved enough money, right? Or they did this thing the right way, or they did that thing, right? So never means zero, means never. And so what you're doing by saying never or always or those types of things, especially associated with kind of negative circumstances, you are, first of all, not speaking the full truth. And second of all, you're speaking unconsciously about something reinforcing that negative habit and pattern anyway.
And so I'll throw another one your way if you don't mind. Patrick, I believe on Facebook, is saying, I've quit smoking at least 15 times, once for more than a year. I'm very interested to hear how you did this without going out of your mind. I'm all ears.
Oh, I definitely went out of my mind at first. I'll share with you a story. I was the day within 24, 48 hours after I quit smoking, I was sitting outside of my little apartment in Carlsbad, California, right on the edge of Oceanside and Carlsbad, and sitting outside where I used to sit in the chair and smoke. And I was sitting there, obviously trying to quit smoking, And all of a sudden, I had a butt from the little ashtray I had there in my mouth, lighting it. No idea I was doing this. My body was doing it without my conscious mind involved at all. As soon as I lit it, my conscious mind came to and was like, "What are you doing?" And I threw the thing, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" It's a testament to how powerful addictions are, and it doesn't matter if it's a sugar addiction, if it's a drug addiction, and an addiction to drama in our lives. We all know somebody who's addicted to drama. They can't get enough of it. Addicted to alcohol, addicted to sugary, sweet, oily, greasy foods. And addiction's addiction. It doesn't matter what it is. It's all the same. It's stemming from the same stuff. And where it's stemming from in most cases is an emotional connection to that addiction. So, I started very young, 9 years old, actually started smoking, stealing my mom's cigarettes, selling cigarettes on the playground to other kids, things like that. And to me, it was, I think at that age, and then really becoming a full blown, 2 packs a day at 15 years old, there was the feeling of it was being cool, right? It was like I was a cool kid. I was smoking cigarettes. I was cool, no matter how bad they tasted and how much they, smelled horrible and how disgusting they were and all that stuff. It was like, I had a positive emotional state to it, right? So that's really important, is to go back to, when did you start smoking cigarettes and what was your deeper reasoning? So come to that, deep understanding and acceptance first. Oh, it was about being cool. It was about, being a rebel for me. It was about, not giving into authority, right? So there's multiple reasons for me, and I'm sure there's multiple reasons for you. There usually are. It could be stemming from a trauma as well. It may not be more of a positive association. It may be a very negative association. Over time, those associations can change, right? It deals with stress. Over time, the addiction morphs. So cigarettes, for example, right? I always had it when I drank alcohol. I always had it with coffee or tea in the morning. I always had it after every meal. I always smoked after every meal. I'm feeling stressed out, go have a cigarette break at work, so it's like you start to form these additional habitual situations that continue making that cigarette feel like it's absolutely a part of your life. And if you didn't have it, you would be lost. And so I saw this example with my own child, actually. It was really hard to help my son, to be potty trained. And it took me quite a while to realize why. But, when they poop in their diaper, right, as strange as that sounds, what I realized is at that age, they have no idea what that is. So if you have diapers on your kids, they have no idea what's going on there, right? And that poop is a comforting part of them. If they poop in their diapers for 2 or 3 years, like what I saw in him was he was afraid to poop in the toilet because he felt like he was losing a part of him, right? And I saw that and I just thought, wow, it makes so much sense, because subconsciously he's got this thing that's part of him and he feels like he's losing a part of him, right? And so it took us a long time to help him get potty trained. It was very challenging, but once I realized that, it got easier. And so the same thing with cigarettes or any addiction is we take it on as if it's part of us, right? And so we have to start recognizing these things, accepting these things, and then changing them through additional behaviors and actions that get rid of our dependency on that action. So if you take a break to go have a cigarette, well, now you have to take a break to do something else, right? Take a break to do something that's going to make you feel good. And don't turn to cake, don't turn to soda, don't turn to sugar, don't turn one bad addiction to another bad addiction. This is the problem with Alcoholics Anonymous, unfortunately, as much as it may help a lot of people. If you go to an AA meeting, they may not be drinking alcohol, but they're drinking 10 cups of coffee and smoking 20 cigarettes and eating sugar like crazy. Turn one addiction for 3 more bad addictions, and you don't want to do that. So you have to replace it with something good. Easy things are fruit. Fruit give you a healthy dose of sugar, right? So like instead of going out and having a cigarette, go out and eat some fresh fruit. And that will give you a positive neurochemical release in the brain, right? These are real strategies that actually will help. instead of waking up and having, cigarettes with your coffee or tea or whatever you're doing, have something that's going to make you feel good. And it could be a meditation. It could be a piece of fruit. It could be going for a walk outside. So you have to change your habits where the cigarette's associated in every part of your life. So every part of your life where you have that particular addiction, that particular habit, replace it with something else. Now what I do, and I've done for years, I stopped smoking, I think in 2007 or 2006, somewhere in there. So it's been 14 years maybe. And I stopped counting after day 3. It was like I was done. I knew I was done. I was done. So these kinds of positive, behavioral changes will help. What I do in the mornings, I go, I have my tea, but then I take a book and I sit and I read, do a little meditation. I read, I drink my tea. That's how I start my day instead of a cigarette. You might go for a walk. You might jump on a rebounder to get your lymphatic system flowing and get some endorphins going, whatever it is that you need to do. And then, so those are important like strategies, but the biggest thing for me, I think, was I was like, okay, I want to get healthy. Like I got serious about wanting to get healthy, to be healthy, to know what health feels like, to have energy, to be vital. So when I made that commitment to myself, then I started going to the gym and I started working out and I started doing cycling classes and I started doing things. I stopped all pharmaceuticals at that point. That was 2006, I think. Stopped even ibuprofen and aspirin and all these things. And through that commitment to be healthy, at the gym, I would leave the gym and I'd go outside the parking lot and I'd smoke a cigarette. And one day it just hit me like, what are you doing? Like, are you so stupid, right? It's like, I'm here to be healthy and exercise and fit, and then I'm going to go here and cause cancer in my body. Like, it was that big realization for me and my commitment to being healthy. And then these strategies I told you about, I just said, I'm done. I am done. This does not serve me in any way. It does not help me in any way. It does not make me cool. It makes me an idiot, right? It smells horrible. It keeps people from wanting to be around me. It, so associate all the negative things, right? I used to have all these subconscious positive associations when I was a kid. Now it's like I got all these negative associations from it that I'm reminding myself, all the problems. It costs money. I have to go out of my way to get a pack of cigarettes every day from the store. I have to spend a lot of money on cartons of it, and I have to buy lighters, and I have to wear colognes. My shirt smells so bad. It's a lot of work. It's not a lot of work to quit smoking. It's a lot of work to keep smoking. I think it was Jim Rohn that said that the first time I ever heard him say it. Jim Rohn or Tony Robbins, somebody was like, it's way more work to keep smoking than it is to quit smoking, or keep drinking than quit drinking. It's way more work. You have to go out of your way and spend a lot of money and do all kinds of things to keep doing it. So get those positive associations, create those new strategies at every moment, and then have your deeper reason why you're doing it. And then you make a commitment. I told my roommates at the time, I said, look, I'm going to be an asshole for the next 3 days. Deal with it. I'm quitting smoking cold turkey. I'm done. You may not like me, but it is what it is. And I was not a very pleasant person to be around for a few days. And I actually went to a job interview to get into real estate on my 3rd day without a cigarette. I was sweating and I was nervous, and I my body was like detoxing, and like I wanted a cigarette so bad. Like my body wanted a cigarette. My mind was like, no, I'm done with it. Right. I'm sitting there in the interview and I think I'm doing horribly. And then I ask him and I tell him, I say, I got to apologize. I just quit smoking 3 days ago and I feel really weird right now, just so you know. Lo and behold, he ended up hiring me, and I got into real estate at like 20 years old for a couple of years, just as the market was starting to crash at the time. So, that was a crazy situation. But, just to wrap all that back around, hopefully there's some helpful things in there for you. You can do it. You just have to fully commit to it. Have your deeper reason why. Start creating all those negative associations in your mind about the cigarettes, and then set yourself up to fully commit, and then create those strategies in your life. And again, this is true for cigarettes, for alcohol, for sugar, for anything. Any addiction you want to break, these things will help.
Nathan, thank you. And so, this hour has flown by. We're even over time, Nathan. So thank you so much, brother, for being with us. I know we'll have to get you back on shortly with your documentary, hopefully. But please tell us where our viewers can find you and your documentary.
Yeah, thank you. And all you tuning in, I mean, just some words of hope and inspiration. You can do it. I know you can. You believe it within yourself and you find the right strategies to do it. You can experience any level of vitality and energy and freedom that you want. So thank you all for tuning in and sharing your great questions and feedback. And yeah, my website is nathancrane.com. I have a free ebook there and free meditations people can download when they join my newsletter. It's just nathancrane.com. And the film they can find it on Amazon, Cancer, the Integrative Perspective, or just go to theintegrativeperspective.com. And it's available for rent. It's available for DVDs. In any way you want there at theintegrativeperspective.com.
If you'd like to receive all of our new podcast episodes, please click on the subscribe button. To find out more about Humanities Team transformational education programs and about how you can help support our mission, please visit us online at humanitiesteam.org, where you can also sign up for our email list so we can let you know about our free online events and other news about what we're up to each week. And again, if you enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review. Thank you.